All right, so Scream 4. So I watched that movie the other day. I was gonna say the other night, but it was during the day I watched it. Um, Pretty interesting movie to say the least. I feel like my perspective on it has kind of changed a little bit. When I watched it in 2023 to prepare for Scream 6, I liked it more. For some reason now, I feel like I like it less, and I feel I like the first three better. And it's not to say 4 wasn't a good movie. It was good, you know. I just felt the ending was like a little bit rushed, although we're not going to get to that yet. And what the heck was that filter? I've always hated that sort of yellowish gold, bright dream sequence filter that they use throughout the entire movie. Like, why? They've never done that with the first three Scream movies and the two Scream movies after that. I thought that was unnecessary. Okay. We're introduced to some new characters in the franchise. I mean, we already have the characters we know, like Sidney Prescott, Gale Weathers, Dewey Riley. But new characters that we're introduced to is, Emma Roberts, Jill Roberts, kind of funny. A woman with the last name Roberts is playing a woman with the last name Roberts. And then Hayden Panettiere's Kirby Reed, Rory Culkin's Charlie Walker, who tried too hard to be the next Randy Meeks, but he ain't no Randy Meeks. And also, Randy Meeks wasn't a Ghostface, so. And then Marley Shelton's Deputy Hicks, who is retroactively retconned into the history of the Scream universe. I mean, it's no wonder Sydney said, "I don't know you," and she had to explain, how she knows her. That was kind of funny. But yeah, I didn't like Judy Hicks. I thought she was very annoying. And then who else were we introduced to? Oh yeah, Allison Breeze, Rebecca Walters, who I guess was Sydney's, book writer or something like that. And then we were introduced to a couple of dumb cops like Deputy Perkins and Deputy Haas. Terrible police officers, by the way. Don't know how to do their job. And then of course, Eric, Knutson's, Robbie Mercer or whatever. And then we're also introduced to Sidney Prescott's aunt, right? Who is actually the mother of Jill Roberts, who is Sidney's cousin, which is actually an interesting connection there. And then I'm forgetting anyone else. Oh yeah, and then Trevor, Jill's ex-boyfriend. So these are the characters we're all introduced to, right? Outside of the ones that we already know. I guess how I feel about these characters, like I said, I didn't really like Deputy Hicks. I found her very annoying. She was too much of a tryhard, and I couldn't really tell if she was trying to replace Gale in Dewey's world and trying to steal Dewey off of Gale, offering Dewey those lemon squares or whatnot. I didn't like Charlie Walker. I didn't like him. He didn't resonate with me, and I thought Perkins was an idiot. I didn't like that. I didn't like him. But we had the opening scene, right? The usual opening kill. And, it was interesting what they did where they did it twice. A movie within a movie sequence twice. That was a complete mind F. And I didn't expect that. I mean, I knew that this movie opened up with the opening of a stab movie. I didn't know it was a movie within a movie within a movie. I didn't know that's what they were doing. So that completely mentally threw me off. But I thought that was pretty funny. But then, of course, the real opening kill happens where, I have my notes somewhere because I forgot the names of the victims, early victims. So yeah, Ginny and Marnie. I think those were the first two victims in the opening kill. They die. And I thought Tatum's death, I thought that, I think it was Ginny's death, right? I thought she was going to have a Tatum level death, where she gets killed by the garage door. But no, she gets the traditional ghost face stabbing, unfortunately. And then, of course, we go back to the original, back to Woodsboro. Because the last two Scream movies kind of went away from Woodsboro, I think. I think 2 is in Ohio, and I think 3 took place in... 3 took place in Hollywood. So this went back to the original. I think Sydney came back to Woodsboro, to represent all the books she was working on. And then, of course, we're reintroduced to Gale, who I think was a retired book writer. And I don't know, it seemed like she was a little bit jealous of Sydney, but he was trying to be happy for her and whatnot. But just as it looks like things are going smooth for Sidney Prescott, right? She's doing well with her book. It's selling just fine. And then Dewey pulls up to her book convention with a bunch of cops and shows her evidence of her book, of all her books covered in blood. And then again, Sidney has the, oh crap, it's happening again moment, feeling that dread. And then as of right now, we don't know who the killers are. I mean, I know who they are, but if you're a first time watcher, you're watching this thinking, I don't know who it is. I don't know who it could be. I don't know whose motive it could be. Jill is introduced as sort of like Sidney's innocent cousin who, many people are introduced to her or led to believe that, Jill is supposed to be the next Sidney Prescott, because she's literally related to Sidney. She's going through the same trauma. She was attacked by a ghost face, even though that was Charlie who slit her arm, and that was a staged attack, because this is part of Jill's plan, and Jill's whole motive was to be the next Sidney Prescott, but to have all the shine for herself. Her motive was fame, even if it meant betraying her whole family. Like, dude, Jill Roberts was just wicked, evil, horrible. I mean, she literally went as far as to kill her own mother. That was just insane. And he even killed her own accomplice, Charlie Walker, who was an absolute loser and an incel. I mean, dude literally stabbed Kirby and tried to kill her because initially Kirby wasn't into him and took years to notice him. And then literally the only reason why he was working with Jill is because he was a simp and he thought he was going to get something out of it. But instead of getting some kitty, he got a knife to the heart, which honestly, Charlie Walker deserved that. But let's talk about these cops. The cops in this movie were so terrible at their jobs, man. When Sidney was in that house with Jill and Kirby, and Charlie Walker snuck into Olivia's house to kill her, that place was surrounded by cops. Those houses were guarded by Perkins and Haas. And Judy Hicks was there as well. How on earth did Charlie Walker manage to sneak past the security, the cops, to get into the house? Because in real life, well-trained police officers are not going to let a serial killer sneak past them to get into somebody's house. Okay, Haas and Perkins should have been fired, and honestly, they deserve to be killed later on in that movie for that. Although, man, I hated Perkins' death where he got that knife to the forehead. That was brutal. I always hated that as a kid. And I mean, speaking of the brutality, this movie overall was one of the most brutal, most violent Scream movies outside of Scream 6. I mean, you have someone getting stabbed in the forehead. You have intestines showing, like Olivia's intestines. And I didn't like Robbie's death. And then even Trevor getting shot in the dick, for crying out loud. He got the Joe Goldberg treatment, but worse. Like, I was glad Jill put him out of his misery, but that was just sad. But yeah, this movie was brutal. It was bloody. Just even the crime scene of, I think, Marnie and Ginny's kill, that was just disturbing. So, and then, the crime scene of Olivia, that was also very disturbing. Definitely hard to watch. Definitely some sad kills in this movie. But I definitely thought Jill Roberts was like a very good villain. She was manipulative. She was psychopathic. She was spiteful. And this movie is a good example of why in Scream you can never trust anybody, because Ghostface could literally be anybody. It could be someone that you're eating at the same table with. It could be your own mama, your own father, your own brother, your own sister, your own cousin, your own best friend, your boyfriend, your husband. It doesn't matter. Anyone can be Ghostface, hopefully not Gale in Seven. Screw those theories, because she's one of my favorite characters. But yeah, it could be anybody. And that's kind of what I liked about this movie, is it further kind of stamped emphasis on that, as you can trust nobody. And poor Sydney, she can't catch a break. Because this is the second movie in a row where she's dealing with betrayal within the family. Scream 3, it was her long-lost half-brother Roman Bridger. Although I felt his crash out was more valid. I mean, obviously, it was wrong that he got his own mom killed. Screw him for that. He's a prick. But his mom abandoned him, right? Jill, her motive was so petty. It's all because she wanted fame. She wanted all the recognition. And I thought it was just funny. I thought it was funny how Jill said she like wouldn't want that attention when talking to Sydney. Like, how do you deal with all the attention of being a Ghostface survivor? You know, I don't know if I could handle that attention, when the real twist is deep down, that's been her motive, is getting that attention, being recognized as that survivor. Like, it's just crazy how Jill was doing the most to be the next Sydney, to the point where in that final act where she, you know, stabbed Sydney twice, she killed Charlie, killed Trevor, I think, and then she started hurting herself, pulling her own hair, dived back into the glass. That was mad. That was insane. And stabbing herself in the shoulder, trying to copy the exact same stab wound that Gale had. Because I forgot to mention, there was that scene in the barn that was at that frat party where Gale was trying to track Ghostface, and then she got attacked. And I can't tell who attacked who in this movie. My attention was kind of drifting because I was like very tired yesterday. My mind wasn't fully there. Slumped on the couch, watching the movie, and I kind of would look at my phone in moments. So my bad. Not what I should be doing if I'm trying to give a movie review. But I can't tell if it was Charlie or Jill. But either way, it makes sense that Jill knew where Gale got stabbed, right? And that she would want to mimic the exact same stab wound. But that's what got her found out in the hospital when, you know, Dewey or something. Jill mentioned something about the shoulder. I forgot what was said. But Jill mentioned Gale getting stabbed in the shoulder after she got stabbed in the shoulder. And Dewey's like, how do you know? And then Dewey started to panic. You realize, oh, snap. Jill is the killer, and I'm glad Dewey clocked that. Smart man. But that hospital scene, man, that was one of the most satisfying endings, villain defeats ever, man. Like, I was so frustrated with Jill. I hated that, you know, she pulled the stunt that she did, pulled the act that she did, and then, you know, when she found out Sydney was still alive in the hospital, she, you know, tried to finish the job. And dude, when Dewey... And this is what made Jill kind of dumb, is she did a horrible job hiding her disappointment in Sydney surviving. She should have acted happy, and she didn't. I think that's another reason why Dewey got suspicious. But yeah, Jill tries to finish the job against Sydney. She fights a compromised Sydney in her hospital room, and that's the only reason why she has the upper hand, because Sydney's more injured than her with the stab wound to the stomach, right? But of course, luckily, Sid has backup from Dewey, even though he gets knocked out by that metal thing to the head. But then Judy Hicks comes in, Gale comes in. It's kind of a blur to me as to what exactly happened in this scene. But all I know is Sydney had backup. Sydney looked like she was out of the game. Judy Hicks gets shot in her bulletproof vest. And then Jill has a knife to Gale. Or it's not a knife, a gun to Gale, right? But then Gale played it smart. She stalls for time. She yaps to you know, slow Jill down from pulling the trigger. Just enough for Sid to recover. And then electrocute her in the head with those shocker things that people use to wake people up in ambulances or whatever. Very satisfying. But I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute. There's no way that could have killed Jill. I don't think people would die from that, wouldn't they? But then what really kills Jill is when she tries to get up for one final scare, she gets shot in the chest. I can't tell if she got shot in the heart or just another spot in her chest, because I do know Jill was supposed to initially come back for 5. So it's actually very possible that Jill Roberts didn't get shot in the heart, or the bullet missed the heart. So there is room for her to come back in the future, but I'm glad she got put in her place, got put down. And I love that visual where Sydney and Jill were both laying down, but only Sid was alive and Jill was dead. And they were face to face, and Sid says, I don't know about you, but I feel a lot better. That was bad. That was a badass visual along with some badass dialogue in that scene. But now, as far as the ending being rushed and abrupt, I didn't like how they transition out of the hospital scene. They don't show the full aftermath of Sydney recovering, leaving the hospital, hanging out with her, you know, core group of friends. They just show a whole news segment of everyone praising and glazing Jill like she's the hero, like she's the good character, and nobody knows the truth about Jill yet, and then that's it, the movie ends. Kind of a crappy way, an annoying way to end the movie, but yeah, those are my thoughts on Scream 4. That concludes my Scream 4 review. It was a good movie, a lot of action, a lot of blood, some interesting new killers, okay? And even though Jill's motive was selfish and it was invalid, the fact that she just wanted fame and was willing to go as far as she did to get it, that's how you make it an evil character. So they did a great job. Wes Craven did a great job at writing this character. And I kind of do hope we see her again in the future. And what I would rate Scream for, I would give it a solid 7 out of 10. Now, I may or may not review the next, or, Scream 5 and 6, because I've already done a video talking about why 5 worked and 6 didn't. Those vids in their own rights were kind of reviews in themselves, so I might not end up doing it, or I might. We'll see. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Like and subscribe, and peace out.